Today on Innovation Deciphered, we welcome Sam Stacey, CEO of Stacx, where we discuss his fascinating journey with innovation in the built environment and share some key insights on how organisations can leverage good ideas into valuable outputs. If you find this episode resonates and want to learn more about how we can help unlock your innovation journey, please get in touch. Details in the description below. Enjoy. Hi Sam, thanks for joining us today on the latest episode of Innovation Deciphered. Really excited to have you here and learn a little bit about your innovation journey through construction. I guess let's start maybe at the beginning for you. Why did you get involved with innovation and trying to sort of push a better way of doing things into construction?
I think I had a recognition from way back, and honestly, right into childhood, that I was really interested in buildings, the built environment, and I always kind of thought it's got to be better. There's got to be opportunities to do things better. So I've meandered my way through the industry, doing all sorts of roles within construction, and I think picking up all these sort of bits of the jigsaw, learning lots of different things about how the whole built environment sector works, and all the while thinking, what's going to be useful to addressing the problems that we perceive that it has. And, it's kind of built up momentum through all that, and leading to getting some really exciting roles most recently with government, running the Transforming Construction programme.
Mm-hmm. And through that time, obviously, you've been up and down the value chain, like you say, with government more recently. Have you seen the perception of innovation in the industry change?
It's been a tough journey in many ways, because I think that people have recognised the importance of innovation for the sector for a long time. And there's been just a huge amount of frustration across the spectrum in terms of, so why can't we shift it? Why can't we really make inroads and change things? And, I think the barriers are well rehearsed. It's a fragmented system. Lots of different players need to align themselves and collaborate in order to achieve change. And it does hold things back. I think we've made significant progress. We, the nation, to some extent the world, have made significant progress in recent times. And I think there are all sorts of factors that are facilitating or pushing for change, so making it more likely that we'll reach what I regard as a sort of essential tipping point in terms of flipping over to a fundamentally different way of doing things.
And you've been in roles and organisations that sort of are across the globe. Where would you put the UK and sort of our approach to innovation in the built environment compared to North America, Scandinavia, the East, and other countries you've been involved with?
A very, very interesting question, and the UK has been strong, has punched above its weight, and I very much discovered that when I started working with Skanska in 2010. International company, working in some of the most advanced markets, big in the States, big in Scandinavia. But by and large, the UK was ahead of the game, certainly with regards to understanding of innovation in construction, developing the techniques. I think the focus on digital, which goes back quite a long way in the UK, has probably been the single most important driver for that. And I think there's a very high standard of professionalism in this country, certainly at the upper levels. Mustn't ignore the fact that there've been some bad outputs from the industry, but the UK is very, very good and very strong. I think as things stand today in 2022, it's a very interesting question to think. So, where are we going to really see the breakthroughs? A lot of great prep work has been done in the UK, but there are advantages or drivers that exist in other geographies that could mean that they push ahead in different ways.
And I guess we spoke about it when we caught up a few weeks ago, that sustainability and the drive for reducing carbon being sort of a real focus point for needing innovation and needing better ways of doing things. And you described it as a bit of a race, potentially, to unlocking a better way of doing things.
I think that is the case, and I think it's a race because I think that the companies or regions that sort of crack the code for doing things better will gain huge benefit for their societies, for their businesses, for the environment in those places. So I think that I think there are huge prizes to be had in terms of that, and the environmental drivers are huge. It's now recognised widely that the built environment sector is absolutely essential to solving the climate change problems that we've got. In terms of the way that we build buildings, in terms of the way that buildings function and the carbon emissions and energy management associated with them. So different countries are perceiving this in different ways, and quite honestly have different drivers relating to this. The countries that have made their livings from hydrocarbons, they're aware that they're going to have to pivot away in due course from making their living out of hydrocarbons. They've got to have developed thriving industries in other ways. So that's a very strong set of drivers, I think, in certain parts of the world with regards to making more from their construction sector. In terms of the more sort of mature environments, the UK, Europe, we know we've got to decarbonise our existing building stock, and we need new solutions for that. So it's the climate change challenge and the drivers associated with that are very significant for the sector, and I think it all points towards doing things in a more joined up way and using technology more intelligently.
So, and that in some ways is a good way to segue into the innovation hub, the sort of challenge fund and everything that you've been involved with the last few years, where that was all about getting the industry to collaborate.
Yes.
And trying to get the industry to share ideas better, to fund ideas together with that government backing. How hard was that to get everyone to truly sort of work together in a collaborative way for the greater good ultimately?
I can honestly say I was pleasantly surprised by the experience I had running Transforming Construction. We got very enthusiastic collaboration across the industry. At each point we were going, these are our targets, these are what we think we need to achieve with regards to match funding from the industry, with regards to volunteering to participate in different parts of the programme. And we exceeded all those targets. So we're sort of heading towards $1 billion in match funding in these techniques from the private sector, which is terrific. We started out with a target of 250 million. The Construction Innovation Hub was doing various things in consultations and inviting companies to get involved in the development of the product platform approach, the kit of parts approach to buildings. I think they were looking for 50 organisations to collaborate with on that. I think when they sort of closed the round, as it were, closed the offering, I think they were up to nearly 150 organisations. So terrific buy-in. That's not, though, the end of the story. What we've got locked into the system now is the construction playbook, the Transforming Infrastructure Performance Roadmap to 2030. So fundamental change of procurement policy and government policy around construction. And that's going to give confidence to the market and pull through a lot of these solutions. But industry companies will have to change the way that they do things, and the habits and the readiness to kind of leap into to change are not really there. So we got good drivers, but
The industry, I mean, you could argue because of the low margins and the structure and what have you, there is a real fear of failure rather than sort of a mindset of productively failing.
Sure.
So what is it, how do you bottle that ability to be comfortably uncomfortable, if that makes sense? You know, that wanting to try something out, if it fails, it's not the end of the world because you can build and learn from it. How can we change that industry to bottle some of that, the more willingness to dive into uncertainty?
I would say the answer to that is leadership and examples of success. So, companies will be massively influenced by the sort of prevailing culture and the attitudes of the leaders, and the staff within companies will very much pick up, not just the words of the leaders, but the actions of the leaders, So are they just talking a good game around innovation, or are they really committed to innovation? So we need to see it in terms of leadership, and I think it's a mixed bag out there, quite honestly. Mm-hmm. I think there are some examples of leaders in the industry, leaders of big organisations that are really committed to change, and there are a lot, and I'm afraid to say this is distinctly the majority in terms of the incumbents, who are kind of sitting on the fence with regards to this. Now, I think one of the factors that's really going to change this is when you get some breakthrough successes, probably from SMEs, from disruptive SMEs coming in and, taking those new approaches, and then lo and behold, making great returns and creating shareholder value and better margins and so forth. And, I think that will wake people up, and I think that will be absolutely a good thing. I think that'll be really exciting to see, and to a large extent, I think that's where I want to focus, and where I would encourage the sort of revolutionaries in the industry to focus their efforts.
Yeah, there are some really exciting things happening out there. A previous guest of ours I'm not sure now what the order is, Z-Pods have been on talking about their sort of really innovative business model, really innovative product. We've had 3D Repo and a number of digital providers on the old Construction Big Breakfast as well, and it's really exciting, and you can really see sort of momentum gathering behind this sort of slightly different way of doing things. And I think to sort of keep a bit of a common thread through our discussion, that idea of a more sustainable future is what is really driving more investment, a more of a need and a want, and a leadership drive for doing something different.
I think that's the case, and you've cited some examples, companies all that I'm familiar with doing great things there. And I think the sustainability incentives are quite significant there. But the other one, which we're hearing a little bit less about at the moment, is just productivity. We can do phenomenal things with productivity in this industry. So what excites people at the moment, and again I'm enthusiastic about it, I'm all for it, is energy management and carbon reductions. But if you can deliver the built environment with what I would say, thoroughly feasibly a quarter of the labour that we traditionally use today, that's an absolute game changer. That has phenomenal effects on all sorts of things. You've got more valuable jobs. Incidentally, those jobs can be better distributed around the country, because essentially that would tend to relate to off-site fabrication. Better wages, better conditions, because the kind of jobs that you're talking about there and the kind of ways of operating are conducive to less commuting, less travel, better facilities at the place of work, all these things. So I think that's something that I want to keep reminding people. This is not just about sustainability, but the great thing is that all these things are coming together. It's not this sort of compromise equation that we tend to be used to in the industry, cost, quality, time, which one do we focus on, where are we prepared to make sacrifices. if you do things in the right way, the way that we've frankly proven you can do things, you get your productivity gains, you get your speed gains, you get your quality gains, you get your sustainability gains. It all comes together. It's a win for everybody.
I think one of the things that we've really seen as an industry the last couple of years and driven by sort of the hub and the likes is that change of conversation to value as a focus, and the value toolkit and things like this, helping people understand how, like you say, it's not just that triangle. You've got the wheel now, haven't you, with all the different factors of what does value mean to you as an organisation, as a client, as a project, all these things, and you can really hone in on then what you want as an outcome, which I think will help with innovation as well, because having that focus allows you to be creative with a purpose, which I think is important.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that this concept of value and being intelligent about your decisions in relation to value should be very significant. Again, baked into government procurement now. We've got very practical tools around that. Everybody gets it, and this isn't a particularly new thing. This is something that the Construction Leadership Council has been pushing for quite a long time. But we did find we had to really kind of dig into the subject and really explore it, understand what the implications are for all the different stakeholders, provide tools to enable people to weigh up the different factors in their decision making. And again, I think we've locked in certain things that will continue to bear fruit for a long time to come now. I think, the news cycle tends to like big bang things, big sort of splash announcements, and there's always that if it bleeds, it leads, so they tend to like disasters. What we've created is a platform for long-term beneficial change. So I think we will see, just gradually as we go along, we'll see better schools produced more cost effectively, sustainably, and so on, and better hospitals. The daunting or exciting challenge, depending on how you look at it, is how we retrofit thousands, millions of buildings to improve their energy performance. So, that will be fascinating to watch, and again, I want to be kind of close to the heart of making that succeed.
It will be, and I think, especially here in London, it's sort of an important, I think, change in going away from just knocking everything down and putting something new to how can we make better use of the existing asset base, and how can we consider retrofit first rather than just renew and replace, which doesn't work in terms of an embodied carbon argument quite as well moving forward, I don't think.
Yeah, and the numbers are quite instructive. We've got this vast number, 28 million homes, whatever it is, 2 or 3 million more other sorts of buildings, the majority of which need to be retrofitted. We've got a labour crisis in the industry already, ageing workforce and all this. There's some interesting factors to take into account.
There is.
But coming back to what I was saying about productivity, the productivity gains are not just applicable to new buildings. There are solutions to improving productivity with regards to retrofit as well. And again, I think we will probably find, once we kind of get stuck into it, we'll probably find that it's quite surprising just how much progress we can make in terms of that.
So we've sort of talked quite a bit about more the industry, sort of a more organisational level. In your experience, what are some of the key foundation stones for ensuring that good ideas are captured and something happens with them?
I'm not a great advocate, having kind of tried it, I'm not a massive advocate of trawling for ideas. Certainly in our industry. Yes, listen to people who know what they're talking about, but I think we know the answers pretty much. We know that we've got to focus on digital solutions, these very broad categories, digital solutions, manufacturing approaches, and clean tech. We know more or less what breaking that down, what the techniques and technologies are associated with that. We've got to structure things in such a way that we deliver that. on the whole, that is going to mean more investment. There's the capital required to set businesses up to address these new ways of doing things will be more significant than in the past. I think we're all familiar with the idea that main contractors, they like to hang on to every penny of cash, and we've got to move away from that. So we know where we need to go. We know roughly what the ingredients are in terms of mapping that journey. It's going to require more investment. You've got to be operating within an ecosystem which provides you confidence in the demand and both the type of demand and the pipeline of work, whatever that might be. And actually the government's been pretty good on this as well, in terms of publishing the pipelines of demand. So
publishing is one thing, is doing it is the it is almost more important. Trust in the data as well as having data, I think are interesting concepts that because as an industry, I think we're sort of very data rich. We're very good at measuring. We're very poor with creating tangible insights from that data across the board, and I think that is so. I agree with you that there is a lot out there, and its adoption is important. I think there's probably some ideas out there that we haven't quite grasped yet, though, and we need to make sure that we create an ecosystem that allows them to come to fruition as well.
Yes, you're right. We do collect a lot of data, but we are not very good at developing insights from that data. And I think that's partly because it is particularly difficult in our environment. What I dream of is a sort of equivalent of a sat nav for construction. So you've got technologies and tools sort of working in the background to help guide decisions which would otherwise be incredibly complicated or sort of beyond the wit of humans. In order to make intelligent decisions about where we're going with construction, you need to be processing vast amounts of information pretty quickly, and then making decisions on the basis of that. And I've pushed a lot for collection of data that we can then use machine learning on, and systems that do that. So NPlan is one of the sort of leading proponents of AI in construction, but I think there's loads more opportunities in terms of that.
There are, and I think it's important that it's understanding the value of the data and where the value lies, and how we can look at opening certain sources of data for everyone to share, creating data trusts and things like that we can all put into leverage and gain value from, rather than, because if we're not careful, we'll all just sort of hold on to it a little bit too tight, and some will win, some will lose, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but there's a great opportunity for everyone to learn. Absolutely.
And data trust certainly a good thing. I think the government, and with the influence of the Transforming Construction Programme, has been more explicit about collecting and sharing data. I think the real breakthroughs are probably going to come more from SMEs than incumbents in the industry, because they're going to be approaching it with an absolute focus on digital, and you can regard the construction industry as an information problem, as it were, or an information-based set of activities. And that's a whole different way of looking at things. And I don't think the old world, as it were, the old world companies are naturally that embracing of those approaches.
So for you, sort of looking back at your career today, what are some of the key lessons learned for you with regards implementing innovation, collecting everything to do with innovation and change? What would be your key takeaways, key lessons that you would share with sort of our listeners and watchers?
Be curious. Look outside. Look widely. It's amazing how much inspiration you can get from different sources. We know we need to change the industry. We know we need to do things differently. Be determined about it. We know that there are huge benefits to be gained from these things. So the prize is there if you go for it. If you're not working with people who are kind of getting it, don't be afraid to move on. Mm-hmm. I think for all sorts of reasons that you can kind of go down cul-de-sacs with regards to that. But as long as you've got that optimism and that vision and that curiosity, you can kind of readjust and head in a different direction. And it's incredibly satisfying. That's what keeps me inspired. That's why I absolutely love what I do. And I think we're going to see increasing momentum and real breakthroughs in the near future in terms of construction.
Well, I think on that sort of slightly inspirational note, I think it's a perfect time to bring it to an end. So thank you very much for your time today, Sam. It's been a really interesting conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for joining us.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.